Drive.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. So, we said right before the break that, of course, the natural reaction to the Planned Parenthood video, dust up, I don't know. Listen, was the language used kind of gross? Yes. Was the sort of the kind of the knee-jerk, not necessarily misdirection, but shift of direction to argue about the tactics used a little bit kind of flat-footed and dumb? We'll talk about that too. Yes, it was, but nothing. When you have a bunch of folks with a stated agenda who have an absolute interest in proving what they are asserting, you fundamentally can't trust it. You fundamentally can't trust what they're saying without more vetting, and these folks are not really giving anything away. They're not. It just no one has. But for this Gulf Coast video that you mentioned, they didn't catch anybody admitting directly to anything.
Right.
Exactly. Because it's not happening. Because it's illegal. Because and this is what drove me nuts. So one of the things that drives me nuts about this story. So the woman that the first one that broke, I think her last, like Nicotella or something, how you pronounce it, made some comment about they're very sensitive about the perception. And oh my, did people seize on that, saying, look at how they're conscious of this. Well, of course you are.
Of course they're conscious of it. It's if for no other reason than because it's good business to be conscious of that.
Yes.
I mean,
perception's reality.
And quite frankly, I mean, methods and intention aside, it's probably not that terrible of thing that this company, this Center for Medical Progress, is out there trying to do this to Planned Parenthood, because what it's done so far is expose a lot of things going right that you're probably not hearing about as much. The state of Indiana, I believe, issued the governor issued a call for an investigation after these videos were released. They could find no evidence whatsoever of any wrongdoing. There's nothing going on. And I find that encouraging, because if I were in the business that Planned Parenthood is in, then it would behoove me to follow the law exactly. So that you don't have something like this happening.
Well, you're going to have it happen regardless. But so let's get to that here in a second, because why is it, do you think, that Planned Parenthood is the center, the focal point for all of the? Well, let me ask you this question first. This all stems from this conspiracy theory that abortion is a business in this country. You see that all the time. Abortion is a business. People are getting rich off performing abortions, which is, I've seen that asserted. I haven't seen that proven.
This is just me and my opinion here. I would expect there are probably some people who are getting rich off of providing abortions in places where it's not legal or extremely, well, I guess it's legal everywhere, but it's extremely hard to get in several states. I think you mentioned last time I was on the show, maybe, or whatever, that up in South Dakota, there's one place, and it's on one side of the state, and South Dakota is a pretty long state to try and drive across if you're from the other side. So I would suspect, just law of large numbers, if nothing else, that there are some individuals who are making abortion a business. Planned Parenthood is not in that business. And they're pretty clear about that. Planned Parenthood is in the business of what their name says, which is Planned Parenthood, trying to make sure that people aren't having children when they're not ready or able to care for them. And that covers a wide variety of services, abortion being, I think, 3% of what they actually do, and contraception making up, I believe, 35%.
Right. So, and as lots and lots of research has shown, that the higher rates of contraception use correlate directly, or correlate inversely, I should say, with the decline in abortion rates. States that have robust public policies in favor of contraception and the education behind contraception and its use have lower abortion rates than other places in the country.
Well, and are you aware of the project that took place in Colorado?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. They made it easy, and it worked.
Yeah.
And then they scaled it back, and it's been a disaster.
Well, and it's no longer received any funding, apparently.
Right.
But for anyone who may not be aware, there's the state of Colorado received an anonymous grant to provide free or extremely reduced cost contraception and appropriate education, all that kind of stuff, to anybody that wants it. And teen birth rates dropped by something like 40% over the period of time. Unplanned pregnancies dropped by 30%. It was, you could say, wildly successful, although being kind of a numbers person, I would sort of like to see some data from other states that did not have this program to see if there was also a decline in that, because I understand that there has been a decline in teen birth rates over the last several years anyway.
There's been a decline in abortion rates
that too.
Around the country, and both sides want to take credit for it. What's interesting to me, what would be interesting to see, and if I was a real journalist, I would have looked this up before we did the show today, would be, there's a lot of stuff, like all the states that have Republican governors and Republican legislatures have been rolling back access to abortion in what I would expect in the next several years is going to be demonstrated to be wildly unconstitutional. Some of this stuff is just completely outrageous. What they've done. Texas effectively shutting down nearly every single clinic with this whole admitting privileges stuff. North Carolina, I think, did the same thing. Mississippi did the same thing.
Yep.
That's going to get overturned, I would expect, because Planned Parenthood v. Casey says you cannot do that. You can't severely restrict abortion services. It's a legal thing to do in this country. But it would be interesting to see in these states where abortion access has been drastically rolled back, if that has contributed meaningfully to a drop in abortion in those states, or if you could suggest that maybe those folks are finding abortions elsewhere, maybe running across the border to the next state over, if they're able to do that. And if those rates rise, but who knows? Or
the thing that I would be somewhat more concerned about is, abortions that are being provided to women in need of them off the record.
Right.
I don't really like the term coat hanger abortion because that kind of squicks me out a little bit, but that's kind of what we're talking about. I mean,
and that's central danger, and that's why it's so important to make sure that this stuff kind of sticks around, because we've seen the alternative. This country for a long time lived with the not so secret shame of women desperate to terminate a pregnancy, not being able to do so in a safe manner, and having large problems because of it.
Yeah,
it is a terrible thing, and like I said at the top of the show, and why you've seen some Democrats crowing about the drop in abortion rates, because, I mean, I don't think that anybody in this country really wants to see a lot of terminated pregnancies, like, across the board.
No, I think most people would generally agree, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life or whatever terms you want to use for your particular position on abortion. I think most people would agree that it would be better if women in this position weren't getting pregnant in the first place to where they have to do that. However, it's my observation that since humans have been having sex, like, throughout history, there have been attempts for people to continue to have sex and not get pregnant. So if you want to do that, if you want to reduce the abortion rate, you have to reduce the pregnancy rate. And the best way to do that is with contraception. The best way to do contraception is with appropriate education. And we know that one of the least effective ways to handle that entire thing is abstinence education. Because simply telling humans to not have sex doesn't work. We're just not wired.
And that's a perfect segue for the next half hour that we're going to do about behavior, the continued attempts by the right, especially to control women's bodies and access to things like contraception. We're going to get to that here in a second. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Remember that we do the social media thing as well as we can. Facebook and Twitter, and honestly, our wonderful social media guru, I think Doc likes to call her, Jen, who does this stuff better than anybody I've ever met, for sure, works really hard to make sure that we've got content. You guys know what's going on the show, so please check out the Facebook page. Please, every once in a while, check out the website. I'm sure that before the next quarter, I'll have another blog post up. If you're interested in just hate reading what I have to say. Otherwise, we will be right back.